Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to today's Business Connected Lunch and Learn. We are going to be speaking about how to keep your business data safe online. My name is Roisin. I am the Programs Manager for Enterprise Nation, and I'm joined today by not one, but two speakers. We have Emma Lemin, who is a Cyber Operations Lead for Vodafone Business. And we've got Andy Deacon, who is a Senior Manager for Cybersecurity as well for Vodafone Business. Hi both, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi Roisin, thanks for having us, and hello to all the audience. Hoping for lots of awesome questions from you all, so please do throw some at us, no matter how difficult. We'll do our best to answer them. So I'm Andy Deacon, so I'm Senior Manager at Cybersecurity, responsible for sort of talking to customers about how to simplify security, how it's going to work for them, and our sort of security messaging across Vodafone. And I work with our fantastic colleague Emma.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. I'm Emma Lemin. I work in Vodafone Business Security in the go-to-market thought leadership team with Andy. I've been in cybersecurity for about 4 years now, doing various roles, and my current role involves looking at security events and creating security content for our sales and marketing teams on the latest cybersecurity threats to businesses and how we can help protect our customers from them.
Thanks, Emma. That was a much better intro than mine. So let's dive straight in, if that's okay. So we've got a quick poll, if you wouldn't mind answering, just so that gives us an idea of what level to answer at, so you guys get the most information. So the question is, how much do you know about cybersecurity?
I've realised you both might not be able to see the poll, so as they are coming in, it's changing every second. It seems to have stabilised now. 80% of people have voted. Oh, 87% of people have voted. Okay, so it is looking like 31% of people say they know nothing at all. 29% of people say they know very little. Sorry, my percentages have now changed, so I'm now just working out in my head. And 25% of people say they know some, and currently 0% of people say they know loads. So hopefully that's helpful for our speakers today for today's session.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that.
I was just going to say, before we go on to the rest of today's session, I was just going to explain to everyone why the team from Vodafone Business are here. So Enterprise Nation have partnered with Vodafone Business to look at 150,000 small and medium-sized businesses with different digital skills. And this session today is part of that free training program designed to help small businesses like yourself stay safe and grow online. And if you have any questions for Andy and Emma before we dive into the questions that I have planned for them, then please do pop them in the chat box as well, and I'll get round to those at the end. So, should we dive straight into the questions?
Yes, yeah, that'd be great. I can't see anything, by the way, other than the poll, so I don't know if that makes any difference.
I think everything is all good, and the audience. Oh, it might be that I need to close the poll. There we go. There we go. We're back. It's the first time myself doing the backstage, everyone, as well as the hosting, so bear with me, but that's great. So yeah, let's dive straight into the questions. First question, let's set the scene a little bit. And Andy, I wanted to ask you, what is the challenge for business owners when it comes to keeping their business data safe?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Thanks, Roisin. So there's quite a few challenges really, but the biggest thing to bear in mind is to do the basics. And everybody kind of talks to everybody about the basics, but what we mean by the basics in terms of keeping your data safe, things like that, are a few main things. So one, make sure you've got things like antivirus on. Even if you've got a Mac or you're running Linux or anything else like that, you're still open to threats even on those platforms. You need to make sure you have antivirus on it. Also, make sure you've got some form of security software on any Android tablets or devices or anything else like that. The other key thing is to do around passwords, which I think Emma's going to talk around later on, but make sure that your passwords are unique and you've done the basic there and you've not reused the same one everywhere. Otherwise, keep everything up to date and patched. And let it auto update, let it patch. That's how you close the vulnerabilities down to stop the bad guys coming in and stealing data and things like that. But it's that sort of stuff that you need to worry about as a business owner on a day-to-day basis, because that's actually where most businesses get hurt. They don't get hurt by this kind of super sexy stuff you see in the news and all the scare stories. Very few organizations get hurt that way. Most will get hurt because they haven't taken one of the basic steps that we all need to take. Hopefully
that's true. And that's that does. And I was going to say that's that's a very important consideration as well for our community listening in. And with that in mind, let's actually go on to the next question. So Emma, I wanted to ask you, why would cyber criminals attack a small or medium-sized business? And I have another follow-up question after that as well. Okay.
Right. So first of all, smaller businesses probably don't think they've got data worth stealing. Sorry, my phone. Phone, sorry. So they don't think they have business data worth actually stealing, which isn't the case. All businesses have valuable data. That could be payment details, customer and employee personal data, or intellectual property. Sometimes it's not about how valuable that data is to them. It's to do with how easy it is to compromise. And now the cyber criminal actually sees the smaller business as having less security. They wouldn't have the budget to have the security controls that have to protect their data. They wouldn't have the dedicated IT staff sat there monitoring the network for breaches, and they wouldn't have the person that's sat there looking for the security weaknesses to make sure nobody can get in. Most cyber criminals today actually target vulnerabilities rather than the organizations themselves. A vulnerability is a security weakness in the code or in the settings on the software. And there is more and more of them being disclosed every day at the moment. It's roughly about 50 a day that are being disclosed by vendors. And these are what the cyber criminals are actually using to exploit businesses. So as you can see, it could be anyone that could be a target. These could be anywhere, any size business all over the world. Okay.
And I was going to ask, how would cyber criminals try and get into your data? I know you touched on it then. Are there any other ways that cyber criminals would try and get into someone's small business data?
Yes, there are. There are a number of ways that they will try to access your data. There's about 4 main ways. So the first one is the most preferred method is phishing, because it's the easiest way for them. It's the cheapest solution for them to attack. They don't have to have any infrastructure in place. So what they do is it's a phishing email. They send an email that's got a malicious attachment or a link inside that's malicious. So if you click on it, you'll download malicious code onto your device, and that will give the attacker a chance to get into your device and steal your data. Now, phishing emails are, they have a sense of urgency. They want you to click on that and not think about what you're doing, so that you don't even consider it, that you've just done something you didn't know you should have done. They're on your device already by that point, so there's nothing you can do about it then. But they actually are attacking your mobile devices as well now, so you need to keep an eye on that. Text messages coming in, they will have a malicious link. This is called smishing. And the latest one is called FluBot. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but it's very active out there at the moment. And what it is a text message will come in that looks like it's come from a delivery company like DHL or Royal Mail or somewhere like that. And they'll be saying something along the lines of, there's a problem with your package. Click on this link to reschedule delivery. And that link will actually let the attacker onto your device. So you have to be very careful. This is how they spread. They go onto the device, they get all your financial data, and then they get your contact list, and every single one of those in your contact will be sent that malicious message as well, and so it's spreading like the flu, hence why it's called FluBot. The next to protect yourself from this, you have security awareness training. That's the best thing to find out how phishing emails happen, what to look out for, things like that. The next way they could get into your devices is using weak passwords. So if you haven't completely secured all your devices on your network, you have to make sure that you have strong passwords. So password security, like Andy spoke about earlier. So you need, the recommended one at the moment is 3 random words into 1 single password. That'll make it harder for cyber criminals to attack and crack that password. So you need to have unique passwords. You need to make sure you don't disclose your passwords to anyone, and always have a different password on your home accounts as you do on your corporate accounts, because if an attacker compromises your personal accounts, they will use that to get into your corporate account. That'll be one of the first things they'll try. If you can't remember your passwords, you can use a password manager. They will keep track of all of your passwords in a secure place, and you just need to remember that one to get into your password manager. Multi-factor authentication, or MFA, you may have heard of it. It's the extra step you have after your username and password. So you type in a code that verifies you, or you've got your facial recognition or your fingerprints, just to say that it's you who is there still. And another way you can get attacked, we touched on it earlier with phishing, is malware. So if malware gets onto your network through phishing emails or the links, and also attackers have got pop-ups coming up all over the web at the moment, saying things like click on this to make your PC go faster, things like that. You might have seen it. The latest one is there's a fake Windows 11 update. So if you click on that link to get the fake Windows 11 update, it will actually download software. It'll go into a Microsoft looking website, but it isn't. And it will download software onto your laptop or device, whichever device you're using, and it will steal your data and send that back to the cyber criminal. To protect yourself from malware, like Andy said, you use antivirus software. Make sure it's kept up to date, and it'll be aware of all the malware. It will detect it and stop it from going onto your device. And the final one is vulnerabilities, which we looked at earlier as well. Attackers are looking all the time for the latest vulnerability out there they can exploit to get onto your network. Now, knowing what you've got out there, what devices you've got and what you've got installed is the first step, really. If you know what that is and you know you've got all that software up to date, then you're pretty much in a good place. You can actually use vulnerability scanning tools that will actually discover all your network and look through all your devices and see if there is any vulnerabilities. And if you follow the simple steps to resolve the issues they find, so you could have software updates or configuration needs to be changed slightly, you'll be in a lot better place.
And I think for most small businesses, if I just add a little bit to that, for most small businesses, really the best practice is to switch auto update on. It's a risk versus reward. A lot of large enterprises won't do that because there might be errors in the update or something else like that that has a serious impact to them. Actually, that isn't quite the same risk for most small businesses. You are much better off to leave auto update on, because you tend to be using more, please don't take this the wrong way, more consumer grade devices and technology than an enterprise. They are much more robust and much more used to auto update. So if you leave auto update on and you've got your AV on, you've done a good amount of the basics there that's making it harder for the bad guys, because the bad guys are going to go after the weakest and easiest option, and that's why they're now targeting a lot of small organizations rather than the big ones, because I could target a big organization and try and steal what 2.5 million in one go. Brilliant, that's a lot of high risk for me as a bad guy. Or for fairly minimum effort, I could steal 50 quid from 50,000. What am I going to do? That's the thinking here behind the bad guys. It's all about economics.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and it's about putting those things in place to protect yourself and your business as well. And Emma, while you were talking, I was thinking Emma's like an encyclopedia when it comes to digital security. It was amazing, because I'm aware of the different ways that cyber criminals can target an individual and target businesses as well. And when you were talking about that, the text that you get with there's a delivery parcel, click this link to retrack. I didn't realise that link would then be used to target you. I've always just ignored those anyway, because I'm like, I know I shouldn't be clicking on anything I don't know. But I just thought that was an important one, because I don't think a lot of people would know that specific link is what is used as well. And I think, because I know you went through a lot when you were going through the different ways that cyber criminals can attack, and also what you can do to put in place. If you're listening into this webinar and you're thinking, okay, that's a lot to consider. We do have, well, Vodafone Business have their cybersecurity insights, which I've put a link in the chat for those of you who are listening live. And I think they're going to explain more about it in a little bit, but I thought I'd just mention that. So I have put it in the chat. So yeah, if you do have any concerns, you can check that out. And obviously, if you do have any questions for Emma and Andy throughout the rest of today's session, please do ask away as well. So that's great. Thank you so much, both. So moving on to the next question I had, Andy, BYOD is a term that is mentioned a lot. What does it mean, and what risks does it pose?
Okay, so BYOD basically means bring your own device, and it stems from many years ago, where organisations or companies would provide their employees with a mobile phone, or with their own laptop, or a tablet, or whatever device they would do, but they'd be corporate owned. So you wouldn't own them as an individual, the business would, and the business would secure them and set them up, and you'd hand them back if you left. What BYOD does actually is it gives the employees the opportunity to use the right devices and technology that they are comfortable with. It reduces a company's overhead to a certain degree, because you're not having to buy a £1,000 laptop if the employee is happy to use their own. But it presents a challenge in that, because you don't own that laptop, how do you secure the data on it? Well, actually, these days that's getting much easier. There's lots of tools in there on Samsung devices. You can have a work profile and a personal one and all that sort of stuff. You can set that up with all sorts of cloud providers. And actually think about what tools you're using for a job, especially as a small business. Lots of small businesses I work with and know use things like Google Docs, which is great. So if you're using Google Docs, actually, can you use a Chromebook or a tablet? Do you need to buy an expensive laptop or anything else like that? The more devices that you have that are different, the more of a challenge it is to secure them, because you've got different technologies, different policies potentially, and all that sort of stuff. If you want to keep it really simple, and you want to do sort of let your employees bring their own devices in, that's fine. You just need to do the basics on them still. Make sure they've got antivirus on it, make sure they've got a unique password on it, and make sure they've got encryption enabled on the device, whether that's a phone, a tablet, or a laptop. They're the three basic things really for all of that sort of stuff. That's going to be over it. But for most small businesses, you will be doing bring your own device, because you are the business owner. It's typically your own personal device, right? You have a joint device, so you're going to have to do this anyway. But don't worry too much about BYOD. It's a bit more of a concern for larger enterprises than small. Stick to the basics, you'll be absolutely fine.
That's great. Thank you so much, Andy. And yeah, I think it's true as well. The way that we work has changed a lot as well, and particularly our small business community listening in want that flexibility to be able to use one device for everything. Because why not? Because we've got the tech there in place, but also let's make sure we've got the security in place to protect ourselves as well. So yeah, that's a great point. Thank you so much, Andy. So Emma, I wanted to ask you, because you spoke a lot earlier about the way cyber criminals can attack a small business. How can they go about protecting your own business data? And do you have any top tips or best solutions?
Yeah, okay. So there are a number of different things we could say here that I've covered a lot of it before, but I will just go over the main ones again. Okay, so the first one is know what you've got out there. Make sure you are aware of everything your business is responsible for as a device, a server, laptop, mobile, anything. Know who your vendors are, so what software you've got. You can actually sign up to vendor notifications. So if any new software comes out from a vendor because they've got a vulnerability, they will let you know about it. And use your vulnerability scanning to make sure there's nothing on your network you don't know about. It'll go off and it'll discover everything you've got and come back and do the vulnerability checks so you know what you can patch and what you don't. Number two is, like Andy touched on earlier, Make sure you've got antivirus software on everything you own. It will protect you from anything. If you just make sure you keep it up to date, it'll be aware of every malware out there that could go onto your device and cause problems on the network. If you keep it up to date, you'll be fine on that. The third one is password security. It's a very big one. If you don't get those passwords to the point where they can't be cracked easily, then that's the way the attackers will get into your network. Make sure you have unique passwords, you don't disclose them. You use a strong password, so like the 3 random words that are put into one to make it the one password. Use a password manager if you can't remember your passwords easily, and then you've just got the one to remember. And always use multi-factor authentication on everything. Just about every application now has the option of multi-factor authentication. You just need to go find that setting and click on the enable and turn it on. And the last one is security awareness training. It's really important that everybody in your company knows what is out there, what to be aware of when it comes to phishing emails, knowing what to look out for, what not to click on the internet, and things like that.
I think the other thing around the training piece is really there's kind of a simple mantra. Is could be a lot of the bad guys will, or cyber criminals will create this sense of urgency. It's part of what we call social engineering, right? So if there's a sense of urgency there, it drives you to make a very quick decision without thinking because you feel the pressure to do it. The very, very, very best thing you can do is stop, pause, challenge. That's what you need to do. We've all had the phone call from an automated call saying, your Amazon account, blah, 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 is due to be updated. Please hold for a thing to give your new credit card details and all this, that, and the other stuff. Now you're going to go, oh yeah, my Amazon account. Oh, okay, well I'll stay on the line and I'll update the credit card. I haven't put my landline into my Amazon account. They can't be calling me because they don't have that number to call me on. These are the stop and pause challenges that you've just got to think about. Actually, who would be calling me here? And the same, no organization will ever ask you for your password. All the banks say that, all the other organizations on the planet, nobody will ever ask you for your password. As soon as somebody starts to do that, hang up. And also, if somebody calls you pretending to be from a bank or another organization, call them back, but leave it 5 minutes. A lot of these gangs can leave the phone line open, so it makes it think that you're redialing the number. You're still talking to the same person actually who called you. So hang up, leave it 5 minutes, or call back off another device on a number that you know is definitely that organization. It's these little tips and tricks that the bad guys are using to kind of trick us into getting money from us and things like that. So that stop and pause thing is the best thing that anybody can do.
Yeah,
that's great. Thank you so much for the top tip as well. Sorry, Emma, were you going to add anything to that?
No, I was going to agree completely. Yeah, just definitely think about it before you click on that link or answer that call or whatever it is. You just have to make sure you think before you do it. Don't let them take control of like giving you the fear it has to be done urgently. Just think about it first.
Yeah, definitely. And if Andy hadn't said it, I was going to give my top tip of I just hang up the phone if in doubt, if I don't know who it is. I just put the phone down and have the confidence to do that. So yeah, that's great. Thank you both. So we're moving on to the last question that I had to ask Emma and Andy. And then we've got a couple of questions that have come in from the audience listening, and so hopefully we'll have time to go through a couple of those as well. So Andy, how can a small business go about educating themselves and keep up to date with all the latest threats and scams?
Yes, there's loads of resources online for this. Obviously, Vodafone's got loads of stuff out there, and we publish sort of information that's relevant to small business and all that sort of stuff. Honestly, probably the main and most useful site that I've seen is the NCSC website in the UK. So have a look on the NCSC website. They've got loads of how-to guides for small businesses for setting up security, all sorts of explainers on the different security terms, what the risks are, what you need to do. That is by far the very best resource as a first point of call. And then obviously companies like ourselves, we provide similar sorts of insight and interest, and you can always give anybody at Vodafone a call and we'll be able to help out as well. But NCSC website, primary first call.
That's great. Thank you so much, Andy. So we've got a couple of minutes left. So if you both don't mind, I'm going to jump straight into the questions from the audience listening in, just because some of these look very important. So I thought I'd better get them asked. So Ingela has asked, for small businesses, is it safe enough to store personal details on Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, etc.? Is there a simple way to encrypt the information for further protection?
Oh, that's a good question. So yes, it is. It is safe to use those cloud sources. Obviously, just be careful what you're putting up there. You can password protect documents. That's a really simple thing to do if they're up there. Also, OneDrive, and I think a couple of others have what they call a private space, which is an encrypted section within that drive. So actually, you can create this private space and then drop anything important into that. So if there's any personally identifiable information or really important stuff, drop it in that area. That then asks you to re-log in again and prove who you are to get access to those files. So that's a really useful tool to do. But yeah, you're fine to embrace those types of services. Lots of organisations are doing that and using it. Just make certain that you take the appropriate steps in terms of using the tools that are built in.
That's great, thank you. And I hope that helps as well. So I've got a couple of questions about antivirus software. Effium has asked, do we still need a firewall as well as antivirus software?
Shall I take this one, Emma?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so yes, you do. Yes, you do, really. They do two very different things. So antivirus software looks for malicious code or malicious activity on the device and stops it. A firewall stops malicious connections coming in, or any unauthorized connections, or even potentially as an employee, you might have a duty of care. So you might actually want to stop your employees viewing things like porn or gun websites or gambling websites or anything else like that during working hours or on working devices. So the firewall will actually help with that element. It will detect some forms of malware, but it does it differently to antivirus. The trick is to build layers of defense. So make sure you have the right defenses targeting the right types of attacks. That will improve your safety posture as well.
That's great, thank you so much. And Effie, I hope that helps as well. And relating to this, Daisy has asked, when purchasing antivirus software, what should you look for?
Right, okay, so this is an interesting one, purchasing antivirus software. So antivirus software these days all kind of does the same thing. So buy from a reputable brand, one of the big players. Other than that, that's basically it. Most of the mid-range packages will have additional tools in there that are useful from a security point of view. So they'll have additional things in there around safeguarding banking, safeguarding online transactions or stuff like that. The very basic is just your basic kind of, I'll detect some bad stuff if it tries to come in. Any of those are fine. I would typically suggest go for a mid-level tier of any of the major providers. They all detect the same types of threats. They all do the same job. Go for the one that you find easiest to use, would be my biggest advice on that. Whatever you think is easiest to use and works out for you commercially, that's the right choice.
Thank you so much, Andy. And I'm going to go on to the final question. So Wing Lee has asked, how can they check if they have antivirus software on their mobile phone? I assume the answer is if it's downloaded on an app, but Andy, I'll let you take that in case there's other ways you can detect if there's something on your phone.
No, so it's whether you've got the app downloaded. Okay, now antivirus software on especially on Android device is an interesting topic, in that actually there are some rogue malware out there that claims to be antivirus and isn't. So stick to the major suppliers who you see advertised for your AV software when you're downloading things right from the Android store. The Apple store is a little bit different. They're much more curated, so they don't have that challenge. And the AV works slightly differently on those devices anyway. But in terms of Android devices, go for the main providers. Do not just go for whatever antivirus comes up, because there is a lot of malware sticking around on those devices that claims to be AV. There's also quite a few things out there that, although they're not malware, kind of more like scamware. So they'll say they're AV, but they won't actually do anything until you click the link and pay for the premium product. So do be really careful around what you do there.
That's great. Thank you so much, Andy, for answering that question, and hope that helps as well, Wingly. So we've actually come to the end of today's session. I was going to say, in terms of the questions that have been asked, everyone is definitely on the correct track in terms of asking about antivirus software. But don't also forget the top tips that Emma gave as well about what you can do in your day-to-day, working and personal life to protect yourself against cyber criminals getting into your devices and data. Those things around two-factor authentication, having very strong passwords. And I know there was a couple of other top tips Emma mentioned as well. And you can also find out more about security solutions that are right for you from Vodafone Business. So they've issued their cybersecurity insights. So I will put a link in the chat for those of you who are listening live to how you can access that. So please do check that out as well. And as I mentioned, Emma and Andy are here from Vodafone Business. So Enterprise Nation, a partner of Vodafone Business as part of Business Connected. And we have our other lunch and learn, that are happening, and we have our workshops as well as our e-learning topics as well. So if you are looking for more digital support with your business, security support with your business, then please do check out Business Connected. And also we have other lunch and learns that are going on this week as well, so please do check out our other lunch and learns. But for now, I will leave everyone to have a good rest of your lunchtime. I want to thank everyone who has attended today's session, and thank you for all your questions as well. Emma and Andy, I don't think you can see on the chat, but there's loads of thank yous that are coming in for people just thanking for your help and advice for today's session. And yeah, I wanted to give a massive thank you to Andy and Emma as well for giving their time today and providing their top tips in terms of how you can protect your business. Is there anything final that either of you wanted to add? Don't worry if not. No,
just thanks everyone, and do the basics, everyone. That makes our lives so much easier as cybersecurity professionals. We can only, it's a collective effort. If we all do the basics, it makes the job much harder for the bad guys. So keep that in mind.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for attending, everyone.
That's great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your lunchtime.
Thank you. Take care.
Cheers. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.